Okay, I'm going to do a quick little review here for you. It is going to be on an M&P Shield in 9mm. This particular pistol is my fiance's pistol. We recently got it about a week ago for her carry piece. She wanted a thin single stack 9mm to ease concealability in various types of clothing that she would like to wear. Now, as we start, empty. That's always important. Before messing with a firearm, you need to make sure it is empty unless you're intending to shoot it. Now, the reason we picked this pistol up, we had been looking for her a nice single stack 9mm and around this size factor or form, and she picked up several pistols. We'd try the trigger, we'd operate controls. She just didn't like so many of them. The trigger wasn't quite where she liked it to be, or how it felt in her hand, how she'd have difficulty wrecking the slide. Or she would like the pistol, and then she would look at the sticker price that's sitting on it and just say nope, because she was really liking some of those $600 to $700 pistols, and she just couldn't stomach that kind of money. Some days she's willing to spend $1,200 on a SIG 226 Scorpion, and other days, well, she doesn't want to spend $500 on a little poly pistol. But she picked this one up and loved the way it felt. She was able to operate the slide and reach everything. She thought the trigger was pretty nice compared to some of the others. And when she found out the price, less than $400, she just had to have it. I've seen them go from $350 online up to right around $400, maybe a little bit more depending on your gun shop. We picked this up for $380. So, another reason we like this, the quality, the build quality. It is very well put together little pistol. It's no rattling, it's nice and tight, parts don't wiggle around. And when I've opened this up, the machining work is very nice. Some of the earlier shields, I've seen a little bit of roughness in the breech area. Right here. A little roughness in the breech area. This one, I don't see any marks in this. No machining marks readily evident from what I've seen. I haven't done a microscopic inspection of it, but it's very well done for the price range. It's excellent. So, ergonomics, very comfortable. There's enough grip here, I feel, for a good secure hold. Some people may not feel like that, but there are aftermarket options. I think there's some rubber sleeves. Talon Grips makes a sleeve that sticks on here. It's very similar to like keyboard tape or non-slip tape for steps where it's kind of sandpapery. I think they also make one that's rubberized if you don't like the sandpaper feel. Here, those are excellent if that is what you want. I find I can reach the slide stop without adjusting my grip. A lot of pistols I can't. I don't personally use this. My fiance does not either. I've taught her to, when she reloads, to just grab and drop, because it works for every pistol you pick up that is a semi-auto slide. Some of them, of the smaller ones, don't even have a slide stop. So, for simplicity, we don't use it, except for locking back for cleaning, inspections, things like that. The magazine release It's easy to use. I do have to adjust my hand a little bit, but not a lot. I have not found a single pistol that I have not had to adjust a little bit. I have medium-sized hands, so I don't have the finger length to really get to it when in firing position. As you can see, I can get all my fingers on this with this flush fit magazine. My pinky hangs off a little, but I can get it on there. Fiance, her fingers sit more akin like this when she's holding up all three, so she gets all three of her fingers on very comfortably. It also comes with an extended magazine that I can find very comfortable. She likes to use it when we're at the range as well. Extended holds 8 in the magazine, plus you can put one in the chamber. The flush fit holds 7. So, other things, the serrations on the slide, I think they are very, very good. They're very grippy, easy to get a hold of this slide. Some people have complained that the Shield is difficult to rack. I have not found that to be the case, but this was the model. It was sitting in the gun store in their case. This was the last one they had in stock, so it had been hand cycled several times, probably several hundred times or more before I bought it. This is the 9mm. I think the 40 is more notorious for the difficult to rack due to the more potent nature of the round, requiring a heavier recoil spring. I hear that after you put a couple hundred rounds through the pistol, that it will become much easier to rack, and if this is any indication, it should be fairly simple for most people with average hand strength. My fiance has no issues with working the slide on this pistol. Now, as far as the trigger was fairly smooth and clean on the break out of the box. Little on the heavy side, closer to 8 pounds or so, and it had a fairly significant amount of over travel. You'd pull the trigger back, about there is where the trigger would start to pick up, and right around in here is where it would break. As you can see, it's about a 1/4 inch between the back of the trigger and that little nub right there, which is the over travel stop. That's a pretty good bit of over travel. If you practice, if you have good trigger control, that isn't a problem. I didn't find it difficult to shoot after a couple rounds to get the dynamics down. I was hitting center mass shots, grouping very well with this pistol. Fiance, on the other hand, she has lower grip strength and finger strength than I do. She was having some difficulty. She could pull the trigger and everything, and that was perfectly fine, but she was having difficulty with, after the trigger would break, she would shoot low left because the heavier trigger added with the large amount of over travel was causing her muzzle, after the trigger would break, to go down and to the left a little bit, which is very common for people with striker fire guns when they're unused to the trigger or the trigger is a little heavy. If you're a left-handed shooter, it will be the exact opposite. You'll shoot low and to the right. As I said, the trigger was actually pretty smooth. A lot of people complain about mushiness in the M&P line, but the Shield, I found, wasn't mushy at all, just a little stiff. So when we took it to the range and she tried to shoot it, she didn't particularly care for that. So she asked if I could correct that for her. Now, something that you need to know about small, light, little pistols, especially thinner pistols. As you can see, this thing is 0.9 inches wide, very thin. Small, light, thin pistols, the recoil can be brisk. on these. I found the Shield to be comfortable. I could shoot it all day long at the range without much problems. Fiance, after the first box, says she starts to feel it, and if she shoots more than that, she says it can get a little bit uncomfortable. But she can shoot it amply to get good practice in when we go to the range without pain and too much flinching. She's shot other small pistols that she hated the recoil on, just hated it, and she would refuse to shoot them because it would hurt her hands so much. This does not. I recommend, if you can ever try a pistol before you shoot it, or before you buy it, do so. Because just because it feels comfortable in your hand while you're standing at the gun counter does not mean it's going to feel comfortable in your hand under recoil. It may slip around too much. It may be too stiff in the recoil for you. It's always important to try before you buy, whenever possible. That being said, compared to some other pistols, this one shoots very, very comfortably. Now, the trigger, as I said, wasn't the perfect out of the box, but I have done some work to it, and I have gotten it so the trigger pull is down to about 5.5 to 6 pounds, and even though it was smooth before, it is even smoother now. Now you push it in, you get a little bit of creep, and then a break. Let's try that again. A little bit of take up, and then a little creep, and then break. As you can see, there's a little bit of over travel, and I did that on purpose. If you try to minimize over travel in a defensive weapon, you can create a situation that after the parts wear, after a while, after you've done your modifications, that you may find that minimum amount of over travel is now no over travel, and possibly not even enough trigger movement, and you no longer get a functioning trigger. That is bad. You do not need that to happen to you when your life is on the line. So I make sure there is some room there to make sure that there is no problems. That even after 300, 400, 500, 1,000 rounds, that this pistol will still function, and it won't surprise her by not functioning when she most needs it. As far as reset on the Shield, it's not bad. It's definitely better than the full-size M&Ps are. Now, the reset was much further forward whenever we got it out of the box. Now, disassembly. Well, after I get it apart, I'll show you a few things about the trigger that I've done. But before I disassemble and show you that, something important I should say. Do not work on a trigger altering parts unless you have the knowledge, the skills, and the proper tools to do so. If you do not know what you're doing, you can cause your gun to not function. You can make it either not function at all, or you can create an unsafe condition in which the trigger is bumping the pistol, setting it down a little hard on the table at the firing line after you've loaded it, and then you get the shot goes off because you done something to the trigger and made it so it was unsafe. So if you do not have the skills, the tools, and knowledge to do it, do not. A competent gunsmith can work on the internals for you. Pricing will vary according to the gunsmith. Or Apex Tactical makes excellent drop-in parts. They are wonderful parts. I have them on a full-size M&P, and they are very, very good. Very easy. All you need is a punch that fits the roll pins. There's two, they're the same size, and that you can take that out and swap a couple springs and the sear, and if you wish, also the trigger. Took me 20 minutes the first time I messed with mine to do it, and there are plenty of instructional videos on how to do it. The most difficult part, which took me a little bit longer, I did it at a separate step, is the striker block is underneath the rear sight. You have to drift the rear sight out, and then you can get to the striker block. You have to drift it from the left side to the right, because it only goes in from the right side. It has to come out the right side as well. The hip tapers tighter as it goes in. I used a brass punch and a thin piece of cloth to keep me from damaging the finish, but I didn't find it overly difficult. But a gunsmith will have a sight pushing tool or equipment to do it with, and it'll take him 15 minutes to swap the parts out, and I wouldn't suspect that would cost a whole lot of money. If you're going to get new sights for these, do it at the same time and save yourself some hassle. There are aftermarket sights available. You can get night sights from a couple different companies, True Glow, Meprolite, and Trigicon. These sights are just the standard 3-dot sights. I painted a fluorescent yellow for the front sight just to have it stand out a little bit better. But like I said, it's not difficult to put in the parts if you have a little bit of knowledge, or you can pay some gunsmith to do it if you feel necessary. Its parts are run for less than $100. With the trigger, you're looking at about $100 worth of parts, maybe $120, and they are very, very excellent. But it is not necessary. It is completely unnecessary to change do anything to the trigger on this. You can learn to use it. I can use it perfectly fine. Fiance, she just loves double action, single action, so she has a little bit of difficulties with striker fired. So I went ahead and did some work for her and got the trigger down to a much more comfortable level of about 5.5 pounds and much smoother. Now, disassembly, very simple. You lock the slide back. You can do it with the magazine in place or push that up by hand. There's two ways you can do it. After you flip down your takedown lever, you can let the slide forward, pull the trigger, and slide it off. Or, after you lock the slide back, there is a little lever that when you flip down, disengages the sear so you do not have to pull the trigger. Now, that's how you take the slide off the frame. Just like most other pistols, recoil spring captured so the spring will not go shooting off, and the barrel just lifts right on out. Barrel goes in, recoil spring, and then you will slide back on, lock it back, and flip the lever. I'll show you that here in a second. I use grease to lubricate mine. You can see I use a lot because this pistol is new. When they're new, I use a lot of grease just to make sure everything's lubricated properly for the initial break-in and the initial bit of wear that always happens. I want to make sure that it happens slowly and with no galling of the metal. Now, how this trigger functions, when the trigger bar comes back, you can see it operates the sear. You have a trigger bar loop. The metal loops around kind of like a candy cane and comes back underneath the sear and lifts the back end up, and then you have that side goes down and releases the striker. So what I did is I smoothed out and polished this little nub here. This actuates your striker block. If you remove metal, you can cause the striker block to not function properly. So it is important that you polish it. I did smooth out the radius, but you do not want to sit there and remove metal. Another thing I did was in the back. Usually it has a rearward facing angle. It comes out slightly, little hump before it's just a little tapered area. I smoothed that out to be flat. Very similar in profile to an Apex sear. The little drop-in sear is just a flat-faced sear. And then the underside of the sear, there's a little camming lobe that the trigger bar comes in contact with. I smoothed that out, did a slight profile change just to remove some material, and also the trigger bar loop, I closed it to be a tighter radius, and that is what removed the over travel. The trigger bar would cut instead of hitting the sear right around here, you had just a little bit farther before it comes into contact with the sear, and that is what allows you to remove some of the over travel. And I'll repeat it one more time. Do not do any of this if you do not have the capabilities, the skills or the knowledge. Then do not do it. Like I said, you can damage the parts, cause an unsafe condition, and is bad. As I said, to put it back together, on the slide, lock it back, flip this lever up, and you're good. After you do work on a pistol, after you clean, it's always a good idea to do a function check. Trigger works, hold the trigger back, operate the slide, reset, works. So, in conclusion, as I said, I think this thing is excellent value for the money. You are getting a very excellent pistol for a very reasonable price. There are cheaper pistols out there, but you know, you may sacrifice a little bit of quality in places, but you're not sacrificing any quality with this. This is very well built. Got a lifetime warranty from Smith & Wesson. I hear their customer service is generally pretty good. You may on occasion get a unknowledgeable or unhelpful associate, but they say on the whole they are very knowledgeable and willing to help, and if you have any issues, Smith & Wesson will take care of it. So, and it's always a good thing, because while generally you're not going to have problems, things happen. So, excellent price, decent trigger, excellent ergonomics, very nice recoil characteristics, and as I said, price $350 to $400, depending on where you get it from. You know, you can't really beat it. And if you're in the market for a thin single stack 9mm, you can also get in 40 if you so choose. Worth a look.